And hello again, everyone. Good evening. My name is Franklin. I'm one of the two co-founders of the Northern California Spinal Cord Injury Foundation. Welcome to tonight's presentation on cooking with Arash, where he's going to be working up some magic with some healthy Mexican cuisine that he's excited to share with you, as I am. So as usual, these presentations are made possible through a generous grant from the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation, so we're grateful to them. Everyone has been muted in order to eliminate any background distractions. And if you have any questions, and we will have a Q&A session towards the end, I ask that you feed them to me through the chat box on your screen. And about 10-15 minutes worth of time that we'll have for Q&A. And then secondly, we are recording this presentation as we do with all of them. And that way, if you need to jump off the call at any time, or anyone that was not able to join us, you will all have the recording in your inboxes first thing tomorrow morning. So don't worry about missing out on anything. Okay, so let's get to it. And I'd love to introduce Arash to you again. He experienced a C5, C6 incomplete spinal cord injury in 2012. And he has, as a result of a fall, he has given numerous talks and shared his story of perseverance, recovery, and challenging limits to audiences large and small, including a TEDx talk. Arash is a Bay Area native, making his home now in Walnut Creek, and he credits his California upbringing for his love of the outdoors, nature, and cooking activities that he still cherishes as he continues to travel, maybe pre-COVID, but hopefully soon, explore and enjoy new experiences. He is married with a daughter and a newborn son named Kaveh, and he also serves on NorCal SCI's board of directors, which we are thrilled to have someone of his knowledge, passion, and experience. So, Arash, take it away.
All right. Hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Franklin. As always, I feel like that introduction is far too kind. So this is super exciting. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. And this is going to be the first kind of theme night. Shelly and Franklin and I were talked about a lot of different ideas for our future cooking sessions, and we thought that some theme nights would be fun because I cook from all over the world, but I do very much like to emphasize certain types of cuisine that I love. So let's get into it. Today, it's all about Mexican food. For those of us who live in California, we're no stranger to it, I guess pretty much for everyone now. But one reason I wanted to choose Mexican food and highlight it and the ways I kind of cook with it is that it's a food that, like, if you just ate like at your taqueria, it's obviously delicious, but oftentimes it can be a little bit heavy. And depending on what you're choosing to eat, obviously, and I'm not trying to make sweeping generalizations, but it's a food that if you make it at home, you can make it quite healthy. And it's a food also that I wanted to highlight because if you're eating relatively plant-based or mostly plant-based, as I always say I do, as Shelly encourages all of her people and clients to do as well, it's tough to sometimes get really great Mexican food that's plant-based. I don't know, I've had my share of like not so great, dry vegetarian burritos and stuff. So I think it's fun to talk about some ways to make Mexican food that are a little bit healthier and really can bring out the joy in some of the plant-based things that we've been talking about over these last many sessions. So it was really hard to narrow down what I wanted to make tonight, but I kind of decided on 2 to 3 different things. So we're going to do a enchilada, and we're going to make basically a taco filling. I think tacos, it's tacos. You can pretty much put anything into a corn tortilla or flour tortilla and make it into a taco. So I just wanted to highlight a cool way to make a good taco filling. So that's what we're going to do. And then I'm going to show you guys a really fun kind of cabbage salad slaw that goes well with so many different things. And let's get into it. So I'm going to ask my lovely wife camera person to follow me here. Okay, so we're gonna make enchiladas, and enchiladas are a really, really great thing to make because you can feed a lot of people. You can pretty much put anything into them, and it's a really easy thing to make healthier than what you would get maybe if you were ordering them at a restaurant. So I'm choosing to make a combo that I've really, really come to love, and I think my wife and anybody who eats these really have come to love. It's a bean, sweet potato, and tonight it's collard greens. I often make it with kale, but really any leafy green like spinach or kale or chard. But tonight it's collard greens because that's what I had. So that's the enchilada we're gonna make. So super, super healthy. And I'm gonna show you some really great shortcuts. So let's get right into it. Enchiladas, I make with flour tortillas. Corn tortillas are generally a lot smaller. You'd make very small enchiladas, which is okay. But they kind of break a little bit. So this is an occasion where you do want to use flour tortillas. I use kind of these larger sized ones. They tend to work well, kind of burrito size, just your standard kind of flour tortilla. So we're gonna make that. I like to make enchiladas with a homemade sauce. Sometimes I get into it. I get the dried chilies, and it takes a little bit of work to make a homemade enchilada sauce, either red sauce or green sauce. But this is an occasion where using a canned enchilada sauce is definitely the way to go. So this is just your kind of standard enchilada sauce from a can, nothing fancy. I like that there's not a lot of ingredients in it. It's only like 5 or 6 ingredients. So relatively unprocessed or minimally processed, I should say. So I like that a lot. So I'm using canned enchilada sauce. And what I did was, I think a lot of us like sweet potatoes. This is a really great way to get sweet potatoes into your diet. So I'm going to show you what I did. I bought 3 big sweet potatoes. All I did was literally stick them in the oven and bake them. I think at like 350, 375 for like 30 or 40 minutes until basically they got soft. I don't want them to get too mushy. It's okay if they do. It just makes it a little messier when you make your enchiladas. But I diced them up into these cubes, and you'll see they're already a little bit mushy. Like that's a good piece. Some of these pieces are a little bit still more formed. I didn't do all of them because I wanted to show you just how easy it is to do this. So I did most of them ahead of time. But when you get your sweet potato, I didn't spray it with oil. I didn't do anything. I literally just stuck it on a pan in the oven, cooked it, and this is how easy it is. You just peel the peel right off. So peeling when it's cooked is a lot easier than peeling when it's raw. Same goes for like pumpkin or like butternut squash, which would be another really good substitute. So if you like pumpkin, if you like butternut squash, you could use that here. They have a similar color, but it works well because that sweetness balances really well with a little bit of the spice of the enchilada sauce. So again, as always, I'm just giving you a guide. Oh wow, this is coming off real easy. Look at that. Almost one piece. You could use anything you wanted, any kind of vegetable. Cauliflower is a really good one here. You could roast up some cauliflower. This is one where you want to cook whatever you're putting in a little bit ahead of time. You don't want to put the raw vegetable in because of 2 reasons. Number one, it probably won't cook fully. And if it does, it might not be cooked right. But number 2, something like cauliflower, or zucchini, or any other like vegetable, it's going to release a bunch of liquid because they have so much water in them. And you might end up with kind of soggy enchiladas, which is no fun. So I peeled my sweet potato. All I do is just cut once. This one, it's a little bigger. I might just cut twice to get kind of equal size shapes. And then I just dice them. Okay, that's this one. And these I kind of got just right. The last couple of times I made this, I did cook the sweet potatoes a little too much and it got a little mushy, which again, there's nothing wrong with it. It just made my prep a little bit harder. So, so I just wanted to show you guys that that's done. And then if you come over to this frying pan, that I had to do some of this ahead of time, but that is just collard greens, 2 big bunches of collard greens. And all I did was just saute an onion, a couple cloves of garlic, a can of diced tomatoes, and then I added the collard greens to it and I cooked it for about 15 minutes. Added a little bit of water because it was getting a little dry, and that was pretty much it. So that's what I have in there. Again, you can use any type of leafy green that you want. And if you go back to a couple of sessions ago, I know Shelly's talked a lot about leafy greens and the health benefits. I've talked a lot about them. But if you're someone who's like really trying to eat a little more healthy and you're trying to figure out a way to integrate leafy greens into your diet a little bit more, this is a really easy way, especially if you think you don't like them and you're not sure if you do. This is a really, really easy way to do that because it kind of gets mushed up with all these other things and you kind of won't even know that you're eating something like that. I mean, I personally love leafy greens and the taste, but again, these are just ideas. So the last component, this is my little festive bowl I got with my fixins for later. The last ingredient is some black beans. I cook these from dry beans. If you've seen my sessions before, I've talked about how much I love dry beans, but you can easily just use canned beans, just drain them, rinse them with a little water. I've talked about this before as well, but this is just some black beans. I'm just gonna add them right in there and I'm gonna mix this up. And the important thing with this filling or with any filling, whether you're using roasted vegetables or leafy greens, is you don't want it to be liquidy. So these greens, when they cook, they had a little bit of liquid. So I just cooked them off until the liquid evaporated. You want this to be dry. You see how there's no liquid in the bottom? Because again, if you have liquid in your filling, then that's going to go in your enchilada and it's just going to release all that and you're going to end up with like sloppy. It's still going to taste good. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's just going to be a little sloppier. So this is what I'm going to put my enchiladas into. I'm going to need more than just this. I'm not going to do all of them right now because that'll take me a while and we will run out of time. So I'm just going to make a couple of these to show you guys how it works. But all these tortillas and all these fillings are not going to fit into here. So first step is take your enchilada sauce. I get a spoon and I just give it a quick stir because in the can sometimes it separates. And that stuff's so good. It's so yummy. I love it. So this is a important first step. You want to add a little bit just into the bottom of the pan here, of the dish, I should say. And this is just so that the tortilla, when you put it in, doesn't stick to the bottom. So just a little bit, like a quarter cup of the filling. And then what I'm going to do, this is always a little tricky with lap and everything, is I'm going to put this back up here. I'm going to take my tortilla. I'm going to take some sweet potatoes. I'm just using my hands. And I'm just going to put it out like this, because I'm going to roll this up. So I kind of want this to go across. And I'm just estimating, sometimes my last enchilada, it's either like really overstuffed or understuffed based on all my filling. But then I'm just going to grab a good solid pinch of these greens and beans and throw that in here. And we've got ourselves a nice enchilada. And we're going to roll it up. I like to kind of bring the tortilla over, grab the other side, pull it towards me so it gets nice and tight. And then one more time. And now I'm going to try to put this, the fold side down, right into the pan. All right, so that was one. I'll do maybe one or two more to show you guys. Again, so tortilla, we've got our sweet potatoes, and yeah, pumpkin is a really good substitute for this if you want. Butternut squash, roasted cauliflower, broccoli, vegetables that have like a little more like kind of body to them. Even just regular potatoes, just roasted up potatoes would be great. And this is a fun thing to play around with. You can literally do anything you want. I like this combo because the sweet potatoes are kind of mushy and kind of creamy and obviously sweet. And then you get all this like juicy stuff from the greens, but you can play with any combo you like and make yourself whatever kind of enchilada you want. And this is like so much healthier than what you might get if you're eating out. And that just tends to go with not just Mexican food, pretty much any home cooked food. So same thing here. I'm just pulling across. I don't go all the way to the edges because I don't want it to spill out. And then I just grab that, I pull the filling towards me, and then it's really nice and stuffed. And then I just roll it up. And sometimes I lose a little bit in the end, but that's okay. I just grab it, stuff it in here at the end. And I'm gonna do one more because I'm gonna show you guys the sauce. And then this dish is gonna be ready to go. So let's do one more of these enchiladas. And I end up, this is an easy way to make things a lot easier. I know we're super used to getting enchiladas just like covered with cheese. I eat almost no cheese these days. And again, if you are following Shelly's advice and you're trying to be a little more healthy or plant-based, this is a really easy way to skip the cheese. And I know that might sound like sacrilege to some of you, but when you have this much flavor made into the food already, you don't need a bunch of cheese on this. So I'm gonna put the sauce on this and stick it in the oven and bake it. And then instead of cheese, once it comes out, you could I always add some avocado, some chopped up cilantro. If you really want something creamy, which, you know, that texture does go well with this, you could use a little bit of like plain yogurt. That would be a good combo for the enchiladas. So here's my third one. And I'm really packing it in. Okay, so now this dish is full, and I'm gonna do the rest later on after our session. So now what I wanna do is I wanna get this sauce, and it's important that I try to get most of this covered. But I'm also doing math in my head. I've got 8 tortillas, I've got 2 cans. So I have 5 more tortillas to make. And so I wanna use almost all this can, but I wanna leave a little more. So I'm just gonna dump this on and kind of push it under, make sure you want this to be pretty much covered. You don't want too much more, like that's probably pretty good. And because if it's not covered, then it's gonna dry out when it's baking in the oven. So that is pretty much it with us. I'm gonna cover that with aluminum foil tightly. I'm gonna put it in the oven about, I think I usually start these at 375 for about 30 minutes. And then if any of you have ever made lasagna, kind of like lasagna, at the last 5-10 minutes, turn up the heat, take the aluminum foil off, and that'll kind of brown them up really, really nicely. So like I said, once they come out, you can garnish it with whatever you want. You can garnish it with avocado, with chopped cilantro, chopped green onions. Like I said, if you want really something kind of creamy, a little bit of plain yogurt, squeeze a lime would all be really, really good for that dish. So let's move on to the second thing. I got that out of the way. I want to make sure we can talk about the tacos. So if you follow me over here, now we're going to make a filling for for tacos. And tacos is like, it's so versatile. You can, like I said, you can pretty much put anything into a taco. Some of my favorite things to do for the plant-based tacos are tempeh, which I'm making tonight, but like portobello mushrooms. Sweet potatoes is a really good option as well. There's a lot of different things you can do for tacos, but I am going to make tempeh tacos. And if you joined us for my protein session, I talked a little bit about tempeh, but this is what it looks like. This is how it comes in the package. So I took it out of the package. It's made with soybeans, and it's super, super, super good for you. And for those of you who are worried about getting enough protein and that, this is an awesome source of protein. And because it's made from fermented soybeans, it's even better for you. It's even better for you than like regular tofu or something. So here we go. Just looking for my knife. So this is a great thing. If you don't like this, or if you don't want to do that, you can use tofu. You can use, like I said, portobello mushrooms, cut them up into kind of strips. You can use little regular mushrooms. You can follow the exact same process I'm going to do here, but with whatever filling you like. And then we're going to, put that into tacos. So it's really, really easy. Again, this is just a guide, but I do recommend, if you're trying to, eat a little healthier or be more plant-based, try tempeh. I've talked about this. They sell it everywhere now. They sell it at like Safeway, Trader Joe's, all the main grocery stores. The one thing I did to this before right now, I took it out of the package, and I've learned this trick, and I talked about it in my protein session, is I stuck this in the same pan with a little bit of boiling water, and I kind of steam or boiled it for about 5 or 6 minutes. And what that does is it kind of plumps up the tempeh. It kind of gives it a little bit of moisture, and it makes it so much more able to receive and soak in whatever flavors you're going to give it. So I recommend that. You don't have to do it. It's just a trick I learned to make tempeh, and it also makes it a little bit less dry. So I've got my pan here. I am going to just take a little bit of olive oil, and my pan's been heating up. So let's start with the good stuff, as always. And we're gonna take, I got half a red onion here that I'm gonna start sauteing. So as we get that going, I'm gonna kind of share a couple other things with you. Another thought I had for this dish was one of my favorite products, and if you're trying to do like plant-based tacos or anything Mexican, it's soy rizo. I get it at Trader Joe's. It looks like a thing of sausage, but it's vegetarian. It's made from soy. It's so tasty. You literally don't have to do anything to it. You just take it out of the package and cook it the same way we're doing. So you would follow everything the same way, but it's already got like all the seasoning in it. So if you really want like minimal effort, minimal prep, way to make a really good filling, and it doesn't have to be for tacos. You can put it in a burrito. You can put it in, anything. You can put it into the enchiladas I just made. You can any of this is very versatile. You could put it into breakfast food, whatever you want. But soy rizo is one of my favorite things, and you would follow the exact same steps. So again, it's less about the specific recipe. It's more about the process that I want to show you. So we're just starting off with our onions here, sauteing these up. I'm going to grab my tongs. And the reason why I'm making this way, and you see this big old pile of spinach behind me, is even if I was making soy rizo, I love the soy rizo, it's great, but the way I kind of cheat to make it even healthier is I always add some kind of vegetable to it. and usually something that I can pack in like the most, kind of nutrition. So in this case, I've got a bunch of spinach straight out of the bag, nothing crazy. And I'm gonna add that to my tempeh. And especially if I was using soy rizo, because it's just the soy and the protein. There's not a lot of like vegetables in it. I always add like a zucchini or some spinach or something else. These are, again, there's just ways I'm showing to like cheat and add more nutrition to make your food healthier, to make it more nutrient dense, so that you can, enjoy eating some of these things. This was 3 cloves of garlic. I just quickly diced up. I am throwing that in, getting this all going. All right. And now I can cut up the tempeh, and I'll just show you in terms of how to cut this. It's really just like your end product, how you want it, like how big or small. I kind of like to just cut once down the middle and then do like little kind of strips, because again, this is going to go into a taco. So I don't want them too big or too small. I kind of like them this size, because then I can just easily. There we go. So give it my garlic a second to brown up here. I'm going to add in my tempeh, and tempeh can crumble a little bit. It's not the end of the world if it does, so just treat it a little bit gently, because it's kind of like soybeans that are like packed together, so it can crumble. But that steaming trick I was talking about also helps prevent that too. So now I've got my tempeh in here, and I'm going to add just a little pinch of salt for seasoning, a little bit of pepper, and then this is where a couple spices to have on hand are super helpful. And these are spices that I use all the time. So, and maybe I'll do a session all about spices and seasonings in the future. But cumin, coriander, and paprika. These are 3 spices I'm adding to this. Some people have like taco seasoning at home. You could totally use that. That's just like a pre-mixed blend of certain spices. Do be careful if they check to see if it has salt in it. I never use those things, so I don't know, but I know sometimes they have salt. So if you do use like a pre-made seasoning, then don't add any additional salt. And if you're using that soy rizo I was talking about, soy rizo is really salty, I will admit. So I pretty much add no other salt. And that's another reason why I add vegetables to it, because I kind of feel like it's almost too salty. And the vegetables, I add them in and mix it in, and then it kind of balances everything out. So, so I'm just gonna add about a teaspoon of each of these. You guys know I don't measure things very precisely, but so that's cumin, probably my #1 favorite spice, most used spice. It's fantastic. Next one's coriander. Coriander is also the word for cilantro. It's the same plant, so it's the seed of the cilantro plant that gets crushed up into a powder. And then paprika. Paprika is great because it's like a peppery kind of spice. Not spicy usually. They're usually actually not very spicy usually. So as an alternative to like chili powder, I eat really spicy. If it was up to me, I would add like the hottest chili pepper I could. But I'm cooking for my wife and my family, so I'm not going to do that. This is just a smoked paprika. I like it because it's got like a nice, super nice smoky flavor and a nice color. So that's another reason why I like it. So again, just like a little palm full of each of these. Give it a little stir in the pan. And now, I'm noticing here one thing. I'm like, this is looking a little bit dry. And if I just added spices, and I don't want this to dry out a lot. So very easy trick I'm going to do right here. I'm just going to add a little bit of water to the bottom there. This is a really good trick for tempeh, in general, because like I said, it does tend to get a little bit, it can get a little bit dry. But for right now, because I want these flavors to kind of come together, and you see now that liquid in there just immediately kind of turned red and yellow and getting that flavor from the spices. So that's perfect. That's exactly what I want. And again, you could add anything you like at this stage. If you wanted to add, you know, tomatoes, like in the summer, fresh tomatoes or canned tomatoes, make it a little saucier, you can do that. You could add, gosh, what else? I mean, really anything you like to eat in your tacos, anything you want as part of your filling. If you want something spicier, if you want something less spicy, the options are just endless. This is just a blueprint I'm showing you. So this is looking much better. Tempeh doesn't take that long to cook. I mean, it's pretty much almost fully cooked, I think, when you buy it. And I already steamed it for a few minutes, so that's not going to need much longer. So now I've got all this, and it looks like a just giant pile of spinach. But as always, I think I've mentioned in my past sessions that greens cook down quite a bit. So I might even add more than this later on, because it's not going to be all that much once it cooks down. The other thing that the spinach or any kind of leafy greens will do was it'll add moisture to this pan, because you see again now it's already starting to dry out a little bit. So I am going to go ahead and just dump my spinach right in here. And this is pretty much the order I would recommend for anything. If you were making this with portobello mushrooms, same thing. You always want to start with your aromatics, your onions and garlic or whatever, and then add like whatever the main star of the taco filling is going to be. In this case, tempeh or tofu or mushrooms, or if you're making it with meat, that's totally fine. Add it then, whether it's chicken or shrimp or whatever it is. Add it in that order. Add your spices and everything, and then add your greens kind of towards a little more towards the end of the process. And we're just going to let that cook a little bit, and it's going to be so nice. And so I'm not going to do this now because it's not quite ready yet, but I love getting these little miniature corn tortillas. One reason is that I think I've mentioned many times, I like to eat. I love to eat a lot, and when I make small tortillas, then it can I can kind of trick myself into allowing myself to eat more. So I'd rather eat like more small tortillas or small tacos than like fewer big ones. So that's why I kind of like get these little corn tortillas. I do really recommend, if you're making tortillas, or excuse me, tacos, use corn tortillas. They're generally just very minimally processed, usually just one or two ingredients, just like corn, water, and they just taste so much better for like a taco. So I'm going to heat these up later and use these for my tacos. But this is just a can't lose recipe, and this is going to be my main filling. But I also like to kind of stick with the theme with tacos like this, and also add like some beans to it. So in this case, I could use the same beans that I had, in my enchiladas. I would just open a can of beans. This is a great opportunity. I'm trying to give you guys easy to use, inexpensive recipes and ideas. Open up a can of beans, make your filling, and then if you've got some jarred salsa or something, you're good to go. There's your dinner right there. Your tacos are ready to go. So now I'm going to stir in the spinach. One last element. You see how already, just as I stirred it in, it really wilted down. It's really not that much. So you could honestly add as much as you want. I'm going to add a little bit of lemon juice. We pre-squeezed some lemon juice. Lemon or lime juice is fine. I like that little bit of acidity to kind of wake everything up. So I'm just going to add a little bit of that. Listen to the sizzle. It's about a tablespoon and a half of lemon juice. And that is just like so good. And pretty much just needs a couple more minutes and then it's done. So that's your easy taco filling, made with tempeh. Like I said, you can make it with anything you want. But this is, again, we don't need to make things overcomplicated. We don't need to, use a lot of unnecessary steps or anything. You can make awesome, tasty Mexican food at home and have it be healthy and satisfying. So let's move to the kind of last thing I wanted to show you for this. Otherwise, I'd have to do 3 more sessions and make like every other dish that I love to make. But I wanted to show you guys just a really simple slaw. So if you've had Mexican food, or I feel like this is becoming a little more trendy. Cabbage is like becoming a little more of a popular vegetable these days, but a little cabbage slaw goes so well. If you ever had like fish tacos and you see like the cabbage topped up on top, that's basically the same idea. So I'm just making a really simple cabbage slaw, and it's so good because it adds that little bit of crunch and freshness to it. So I cut up some of the cabbage previously. I'm going to cut a little more because I want to show you guys how I do it. But one quick trick I do recommend is to give a pinch of salt to your cabbage, just a little bit, and then work with your hand, work the salt into the cabbage. I didn't put much in. Don't worry, Shelly. I'm not going to give anyone a heart attack. But that little bit of salt, what it's going to do, and it's important I did it now, is it's going to, cabbage can be pretty kind of tough at first. But by giving it that little pinch of salt, it's kind of drawing out the moisture and it's tenderizing it a little bit. So by the time I'm done doing everything else, my cabbage is tenderized a little bit. So I just use that to soften up my cabbage, and I'm just going to let it sit in the bowl. And then I'm going to show you guys kind of how I cut it up, because it is a really underappreciated vegetable. You can totally get the pre-shredded cabbage. It's a time saver. It's great. Shelly always likes it when I talk about cost. I think those bags, like a bag this big of like probably like half of this bowl of shredded cabbage is like $2.50, something like that. It's at least $2. This entire head of cabbage was 44 cents, organic cabbage. So in terms of cooking economically, it really pays to do a little bit of the prep yourself if you can. If you need to save the time or it's hard for you to prep, totally understand. Use the pre-shredded cabbage, dump it out of the bag into the bowl, and we're at the same spot. But if you're doing a little bit of prep, this is the leftover cabbage that I had. I just want to show you how I cut it to get it right. You see it's got this big core right here. We don't want that. So I kind of was cutting around the cabbage. So now I've got this core here. So all I'm going to do, and I'll show it to you this way, is basically cut out the core like a triangle, like an angle. And that kind of, I've got most of it right there. So now I've got this cabbage, and I'm going to cut once lengthwise because I don't want my strands to be too long. And then I go this way. And this is where if you have some decent knife skills, it's helpful. Try to cut as thin as you can. The thinner you get it, the more delicate it will be in the bowl. And you can do it longer, shorter, whatever you want, but I'm just showing you guys so you see. So I'm gonna add that to my mix. And you could keep it with just cabbage. I like to add a little bit of onion to it. You could add yellow onion, red onion. I have some red onion here. So this is another example of if you can cut it as thin as possible, this is a good opportunity. So I'm going to cut once down the middle because I want them a little bit, not too long. And then I'm going to just cut as thin as I possibly can. And you could always substitute something else in here. One thing I like to do with this kind of slaw that goes really well is, believe it or not, adding a little bit of fruit. So I forgot to get any apples, but an apple would go really well. You could grab an apple and cut it up into some thin slices and add it into this. It's such a good combo with this cabbage. But you could keep it really simple. You could add a lot more stuff to it. So I've got my thinly sliced onion. I love that. That's gonna go right in here too. And then because I wanted to add something with a little bit of flair to it, I've got some pumpkin seeds. These are just raw pumpkin seeds, not toasted or salted or anything. I'm just gonna grab some of these, toss them in. And then in terms of dressing, really, really straightforward. I've got some olive oil, which maybe isn't the most traditional, but that's okay. And I've got that lemon juice. Lime juice works fine. We just have a lot of lemons on the trees, and so we're using up our local lemons. I'm gonna dump that in, and that lemon juice, what it's gonna do, lemon, lime, whatever you use, is it's gonna break that cabbage down. So this is a great opportunity now to really toss this as well as you can. Oh, I forgot to add some pepper. So I added a little bit of salt earlier. I'm gonna add just a little pinch of pepper and just a little pinch more. And now I'm just gonna toss this up the best as I can. My bowl is probably a little too small, but you see how beautiful and colorful that is. And this is along the lines of what you get if you're at a Mexican restaurant. You're getting that nice kind of crunchy cabbage topping on whatever you're eating. And I'm gonna add one more thing to it and grab some cilantro, which obviously is a common ingredient in Mexican cuisine. I already washed this previous. Definitely wash your cilantro. Don't take your herbs from the store and just start using them. Cilantro especially can be really sandy or gritty. So definitely wash it, dry it ahead of time. But I like to keep it in the bunch because it makes it easier to chop later. So I'm just going to chop up a little bit of cilantro because I want a little bit of green in here. And then look at that. How beautiful is that? So when I make these tacos, I'm gonna heat up my tortillas. I've got my filling right here. I'm gonna add some like avocado if I have some, maybe some beans. Top it off with this lovely cabbage slaw, which I'm going to toss some more because it's still not totally tossed. Maybe give it a few more sprinkle of pumpkin seeds to make it pretty. And again, you can modify that however you want, but that's kind of the gist of it. I'm going to turn the camera around and release my lovely wife and give you guys a chance to do some Q&A, and we can always talk some more about some of these dishes as well. So Franklin,
Yes.
shall we start somewhere with some questions?
Indeed. Question is, how do you finish off the enchiladas once you take them out of the oven?
Yeah, so foil on top, oven. Like I said, the last 5 or 10 minutes, I take the foil off, turn up the heat a little. So usually I do like 350, 375 for the first 30-ish minutes. And then maybe 5 minutes at the end at like 400 or 425 with no foil. You do want the foil on at first to make sure everything's kind of bubbling and steaming and not evaporating away. But once it comes out, I think I mentioned this earlier, I like to do a little bit of avocados. So I serve up the enchilada, put some fresh avocado, a little like spoonful of like plain yogurt if you want, a little bit of chopped up cilantro, chopped up green onions. That's kind of it. I honestly don't think you miss a whole lot by not having like a big old heavy thing of melted cheese on top. But that's just me. So,
all right.
If you like the cheese, then go for it.
Right. And what kind of cheese did you say? I know you don't use that much or you don't eat that much, but if you are using cheese, what kind of cheese are you using?
If you are using cheese for this, you probably want to do like Jack. I feel like a cheddar or something is probably has a little too much tang or something. So something kind of nice and melty. Something like mozzarella doesn't have a lot of flavor to it. So you kind of want something that gives you a little bit of flavor, especially if you're going to go there and you're going to put the cheese. You might as well have something that tastes a little bit better. But yeah, trust me, if you try it, try this and eat it and tell me that like you're dying for cheese. I really don't think you will. There's so much flavor in that dish. You don't really need a whole lot, especially if you add some healthy fats and avocado on top. Does the same job.
Very good. And once again, I know you said that the sweet potatoes can be replaced, but what would you suggest that they could be replaced with?
Yeah, so some easy ones, like I said, is really anything. But I like the idea of a vegetable with a little bit of like body to it, like a little more like dense. So like sweet potatoes, regular potatoes would work. Pumpkin, butternut squash, any of those kind of winter squashes, kabocha squash, curry squash, any in that family. Butternut squash is probably the easiest in terms of prep and to use. Those would work really, really nicely. And you would just do the same thing. You would just cook them in the oven for a little bit, get the seeds and the peel off, and then use them in the same way. But you could do that. You could do the same thing with tempeh. You could do it with the soy rizo I was talking about. You could use it if you're eating meat. You can obviously use your meat, but again, you want to cook it ahead of time. So don't put raw meat into that. You'll have a hot mess of salmonella or something. So really anything you want, but I like those things. If you use vegetables like broccoli or something, it's good, but it's almost like not enough. Like you want something that's a little substantial because you're not putting like some of the unhealthy stuff that you want a really satisfying dish. That's why I like to add beans to it. So any of those ideas I think could work.
Okay. All right, next question. What seasonings do you put into the greens and beans, or do you?
The greens and beans, I think I might have just added just a pinch of cumin. If anything, I think I did the same thing as that was it. I did the same combo as I did for the tempeh. So cumin, coriander, paprika. But you can use like Mexican seasoning, taco seasoning, whatever it's called. You could use whatever really spices you want, but I'm trying to keep it simple, and those are 3 spices I always have on hand. And like I said, if I ever do a session on spices and seasonings, those are absolutely ones I recommend you all have in your kitchen, and they're pretty common now. Everyone kind of at least is somewhat familiar with them.
Okay. Next question. Why is it that you like cumin so much? What is the quality about it that attracts it to you?
Have you ever smelled cumin? Person who asked this question. Have you ever smelled cumin and seen what it smells like? I do mean that. Like, take a whiff and tell me it doesn't smell super, super good. And if you don't like it, you don't like it. That's fine. But one reason is that it's a common spice, or maybe one of the most common spice in a lot of different cuisines, and those happen to be cuisines that I personally really like. So it's
where
kind of
does
like
it from? Where does it come from?
cumin. Good question. That one, I tend to know the origins of a lot of spices. I don't know. Oh no, I do. It's cumin. What am I talking about? I have it right here in front of me. Here it is. Cumin seeds. Where's my camera? Here it is.
Yep.
So these are seeds like fennel seeds or mustard seeds. So it's a spice. We can thank the spice trade of hundreds of years ago for introducing all of us to these wonderful flavors. So it's a seed. I have the whole seed. Sometimes I use the whole seed and I grind it myself in a coffee grinder. Most of the time I just use ground cumin. But it's common in Mexican food, in Indian food, in Iranian food. A lot of other like Middle Eastern cuisines use cumin. Pakistani cuisine uses cumin. It's a very commonly used spice in a lot of cuisines that, like I said, I personally really, really like. And I don't think it's a coincidence. It's just a great, great seasoning. So if I had like 3 spices on a desert island, cumin would be absolutely #1 to have. And one other quick note on spices, since someone asked, I always tell my friends this too. Don't buy your spices if you can. Don't buy them in those little jars. They're so expensive. They're often spices people don't know. You want to eat spices relatively fresh, and sometimes those jars that you see at the grocery store have been bottled like a year ago or something. It'll say on there usually. But if you can, for those of us living in the Bay Area or in any kind of close to somewhat of an urban area, go to a Mexican market, an Asian market, any kind of like even a Middle Eastern market. Get them in the little like bags that they come in. It's like literally 1/5 the price. I don't know why. It's so much cheaper, and then just throw it into a jar or in a container at home. I get all my spices at an Indian market because they're dirt cheap, and it's just such better quality. And usually it's like imported straight from India. It smells fantastic. So if you have to, I get it. But if you want to save cost and get better quality, crazy thing where you can spend 1/5 the amount and get a much better product if you buy your spices, not in those little jars.
What an amazing suggestion. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So correct me if I'm wrong, but tempeh is a byproduct of soybeans?
It's a product.
It's a product of
It's not a
soybeans.
byproduct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's made from fermented soybeans.
Okay. And I know you mentioned that it could be found at at Trader Joe's, Safeway, etc. Correct? Because this person is
Yeah,
asking, where would you find tempeh in the grocery store?
I get it at Trader Joe's. I know sometimes I sound like a advertisement for Trader Joe's, which is funny because there's a lot of their stuff I'm not crazy about, but some of their things are really good. And I buy it from Trader Joe's because it's organic, because soy is one of those things that I try to buy organic as much as I can because it's kind of a mass-produced commodity crop. It's organic. It's really cheap. I think it's like $2 for that entire package. And they all, it's available. It's super easy. So yeah, Trader Joe's, but I've seen the same exact thing at Safeway, at other, large grocery stores. It's gotten much more common. It's a refrigerated product. So if you're looking for it, go to like the refrigerated section of your store. In Trader Joe's, it's easy. It's kind of right in between, right next to all the tofu and cold cuts and that kind of thing. So
Okay.
Great product.
Very good.
Shelly can probably speak to the health benefits even better than me. So
Yeah. All right. Next comment from an aspiring chef here. She says, I make my tacos with quinoa or queen. Yeah, I think quinoa and homemade quinoa. Maybe the spelling. Yeah. And homemade black beans with cumin, garlic, chili powder, tomato paste, and pepper.
Perfect.
I also mix that with roasted veggies for my enchiladas.
Perfect. Sounds delicious. Send some to me.
She might be one of our guest presenters one of these days. So Shelly injected cumin is Eastern Mediterranean seed from thousands of years ago. And then one person says originated in Western Asia. Okay, next question. And this is something that's funny that it's being asked because you and I were talking about it before the start of the presentation. When are you going to provide the recipes for what you are making?
Yes, the recipes. I will. Oh man, I owe everybody a risotto.
Well, why don't you address it sort of the way we were talking about how you go about kind of preparing what the ingredients for your meals, that it's not a straightforward recipe, that sometimes you improvise based on what you find in your refrigerator, right?
I can almost say I've never really used a recipe ever, because even I have tons of cookbooks I'm inspired by a lot of recipes, but I'm always tweaking and doing things. But I get it. People want a recipe. People want to follow guidelines. I can try my best to give you recipes. But again, I'm not trying to dodge the question. It's more, and for something like the risotto that I made last time, that's a little bit easier to do and more applicable. But I never measure anything, so my recipe writing skills would probably be pretty bad. But it's more, I'm more, if you went and Googled cabbage slaw or whatever, tempeh tacos, you'll probably find 100 recipes. Maybe most of them, maybe some of them aren't great, but some of them are probably delicious. But the reason why I kind of resist the recipes, I just want to more educate you all in the cooking, so that you can kind of apply, so that even if you get a recipe sent to you that you really like or you want to try, but if it's calling for something I want to educate so that you're like, that doesn't seem right. Like a cup of oil or like something that can make it, let's say, unhealthy or something that doesn't really make sense. I'm more into that. I'd be more happy if everybody just made whatever they like and enjoy. And I know everybody has different preferences, and especially with the spinal cord injury community, different dietary needs and stuff. So I never want to force a specific ratio of this and that. That said, I do realize I should probably write up some recipes. So I will do my best to provide you with some recipes, especially for some of these more straightforward, recipes and whatnot. But again, I do always say, please, 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 just more focus on the things I'm teaching you instead of the like specific amounts of this or that, because I think that's what made me become a better cook and a chef over time. Was it's not that I memorized 100 different recipes, it's just that I was exposed to things over and over and over. So by the time I got a vegetable that I'd never cut or chopped before, I'd seen or read about it, and I was like, oh, I think I know how to deal with this.
All right. And also, folks, we had someone that had emailed us earlier asking if Arash could share the list of ingredients that he uses. He might be able to do that, but as you noticed, he did some prep work in advance. This person was hoping to follow along with Arash as he's doing his meal prep and cooking, that she could also do the same thing. It becomes a little bit challenging because, like I said, Arash does some level of prep work in advance, and just starts becoming quite an undertaking to explain everything. So I hope you folks will just sort of watch him, and then again, you're going to have the recording, and you'll be able to replicate it. Just I know that you would love to follow along with him, but you'll have to do it on your own. Okay, next question. Have you used whole grain tortillas with more fiber?
Yeah, I have. I think the important thing with any other kind of tortillas, because they make a lot of them out there with different. That's a good question, actually, with different ingredients and whatnot, or even gluten-free tortillas. I think for the enchiladas, the thing you want to be careful of is you want it to be pliable, because some of those tortillas, like I said about corn, and I've seen sometimes people make larger corn tortillas, or even if you wanted to take small corn tortillas and make little mini enchiladas, which would be fine, is they rip. And the same goes for like maybe a tortilla that's made from like, gluten-free tortillas or something. So this is a case where like that gluten in a flour tortilla, it's actually quite helpful, because what gluten does is it allows the thing to be stretchy and pliable. So you can use whatever tortilla you want. I would just check it first to make sure if you can roll it or fold it and it doesn't just rip when it's cold like that, then you can go for it. Another thing you could do as a substitute to that, and I just thought of this now, but I've done this before, is you could kind of, instead of do like a rolled enchilada, you could take that same dish I was using and you could put a layer of your alternative tortilla and then put your filling in, kind of like you're making lasagna, and then put another layer of the tortilla on top. So it's almost like tortilla filling, tortilla on top of each other, and then do the sauce on top. That could totally work. It doesn't give you like the rolled thing, but it gives you, and because tortillas are usually round, it kind of, in a square dish, it gets a little funky, but you can totally make that work. Or I've definitely done that in the past as well, when I've been forced to use like tortillas that I didn't have handy or something. I definitely remember doing that. So that's an alternative if you're using like a different tortilla that's a whole grain tortilla. That's a great idea. Way to integrate some more nutrition into your recipe. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, and Shelly says you can warm up another tortilla first before filling it, as warm tortillas are more pliable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, next question. This question I think has been asked a few sessions ago. Involves cabbage. This person says cabbage tends to create a lot of gas for me during your prep. Is there anything that you're doing to minimize that?
I'm not doing anything to minimize it. I will say that trick of giving it a little bit of salt and getting some of that liquid out of it does help with that. I think any kind of brassica, which is the category of vegetable that cabbage falls under, if you eat raw broccoli or raw cabbage or raw, Brussels sprouts or like a salad, it tends to have more of that effect of creating gas. So I totally get that. That trick does help a little bit. But if it's too much and it doesn't work, it's a great substitute. It's not as nutritious, but it's really great. It's just iceberg lettuce, or even like romaine lettuce. It's basically has no nutrition, but it also doesn't have anything bad. It's basically just water. But I have a soft spot in my heart for iceberg lettuce because I grew up eating a lot of iceberg salads. And the crunch is really the thing. I'm really big on texture. I like crunch. I like contrast in texture. So when you have this like creamy, oozy enchilada with sweet potatoes and this bakes and it gets all soft and delicious, to have something crunchy on top. And that's why I made the cabbages, because it goes with that as well. So if you don't like the cabbage, ultimately make it with romaine lettuce or iceberg lettuce, same exact thing, just chop it up super thin and it'll still give you that freshness, that crunch that really adds a lot to the dish.
All right, so give us your best defense of cabbage, nutritionally.
Oh, nutritionally, that's one I don't know great off the top of my head. All I know is that it's in a category of vegetable that just tends to be extremely healthy. But cabbage is a very, very underrated vegetable. And if you go to, once we can go to restaurants again, it's kind of making a comeback. So people are like roasting it whole. They're cutting it into like wedges and treating it like a steak. I've seen there's all kinds of cool things to do with cabbage. When you cook it, what's cool is that cabbage caramelizes. Like when you roast it in the oven, if you just cut it into quarters and put it in the oven, once it browns, the natural sugars come out of the cabbage and it becomes sweet. And it's so delicious. And if you made a sauce to put on that, I sometimes do that for like my veggie bowls. I'll make some cabbage and I'll cook it. And then you put some sauce on it to give it a little moisture and flavor. And it's delicious. Cabbage is making a comeback. I know a couple of guys who are professional chefs. One of my buddies, he's a pretty big time chef in DC. And he says cabbage is his #1 favorite vegetable. So it's humble. It's very inexpensive. You can find it everywhere. And if you find some ways to use it, it's great. And if you cook it, it does lessen the gas effects of it. So keep that in mind if you have that sensitivity to cabbage. But it's a lovely vegetable, especially in this format. This is my favorite way of eating it. And in summertime, and I mentioned fruit. In summertime, I'll add like nectarine or peaches to this same slaw. And other times, like I said, apple. If you've got like mango or something, that little bit of sweetness also really makes this slaw I made, which is so pretty now. It gives it another little bit more color and everything. So great vegetable. One of my favorites.
Okay, and I'm going to bring Shelly in. So Shelly, what's your defense of cabbage?
Defense? I don't have to defend cabbage. Cabbage stands on its own. Lots of vitamin C, antioxidants. Red cabbage is great. There's nothing to say. It is one of those vegetables that is more gas producing. So I like what Arash said one time. He said, you just got to kind of deal with it. This is what happens. It's just a result of eating something healthy, cabbage is that.
Okay. And just eat cabbage by yourself. Make sure no one's around you, maybe.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Arash, another question. What's your method for heating the tortillas for the tacos?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it's something that sounds super straightforward, but I've struggled with over the years, especially if you're cooking for a lot of people. Usually I'm just making it for, my wife and I, or, so it's not too hard. I kind of just do them. I find like a big wide frying pan, like the one I was using for the tempeh, and I just do them dry in a frying pan. You don't need to add oil. Dry. So I usually do like however many I can fit in the frying pan. Just do it for a few seconds, flip them over. If you have a nice hot pan, it only takes like 10 or 20 seconds on each tortilla, and then I just keep them warm. I usually take like a kitchen towel, like a cloth towel, and put the cooked tortillas into that and keep them wrapped up, kind of like you get it at a Mexican restaurant, and that keeps them warm. And yeah, that's my favorite way. I've tried doing them in the oven. I've tried the microwave. That works too. But the way I mentioned is the easiest if you're not making like too many. If I was doing it for a big group of people, I don't know what I would do. I have to research that and play around with ways. I've definitely read about stacking 10 and wrapping in foil and sticking in the oven. And I found some success with that, but sometimes it doesn't work out as well. So as long as it's not too many, just a dry frying pan, but dry. Don't add anything to it. That's all you need.
Okay. Well, I think the following statement is the best way to sum up our presentation tonight. This person says, "I never follow recipes, but they are a great starting off point." So,
they are. That's exactly
True.
it. And that's okay. Stay on me with the recipes. I'll be better. I have been trying to find some time to actually create some of these recipes. So I know people like it and appreciate it. And I'll do my best to start at least typing up some of these and having like at least a blueprint. So thank you for staying on me. Bear with me. I will try to be better about that.
all right. We'll wait for the cookbook too.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much, Arash. Thanks, Britta, for being the videographer once again. As I mentioned, tonight's presentation was recorded so that we could make it available to everyone, and you can look for it in your inboxes tomorrow morning and see if you could sort of match what Arash showed you, or maybe experiment a little bit more on your own. So thanks again, everyone. Hope that you enjoyed tonight's presentation, and look forward to seeing you all next month when Shelly and Arash are going to do a sort of a duo presentation together. So we still have to work out what's going to be the topic, right?
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
We will. All right, everyone. Enjoy the rest
Thank
of your
you.
week. Thanks so much for tuning in. Have a good night.
Thank you, Arash.
Franklin.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Shelly. Thank you, everyone.